Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So we've got another in a long line of awesome guests for you tonight. Our guest today is Taylor Scott. Taylor was in the hospitality industry for a long time, now does keynote speaking, leadership management training, and has written a couple of books. He is an awesome guy. He's got great energy about him. He will share personal anecdotes and why he's so passionate about teaching and coaching and helping people improve not only themselves, but the organization around their culture or the culture around their organization and focusing on leading with hospitality. If you do that, you can build a really outstanding culture. So it's going to be a great interview. We're really excited about having him on. So without any further ado, let's bring Taylor onto the channel now. So, Taylor, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, fellow Ginger.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, Taylor and I had a great conversation a couple months ago. He's been running all over creation. He's going to talk about a lot of the work that he's been doing and what he's been putting together as we go through our conversation here. But super interesting guy. And I'll tell you right now, is a great example of what happens when you take action and refuse to take no for an answer and find ways to be successful despite obstacles being thrown up in front of you. So I'm really excited to have him share his story. So without further ado, Taylor, why don't you just start there? Like, why don't you start from, getting out of high school, starting in college and lead us through that?
Yeah, sure. I'm born and raised Eastern Kentucky, so I grew up basketball guy, in Kentucky, and growing up in that part of the world, as many of your listeners may know, when it's time to go to vacation, we often go to Florida. So my family was like the quintessential Disney family. We'd always go to Walt Disney World for vacation. So I knew at a relatively young age that I wanted to be in the hospitality industry. So I was trying to find places I could walk on basketball, or play basketball. So I ended up having to be a walk on at the Division II level at Florida Southern College. And they had a great business program as well that had a hospitality program attached to it. And my favorite part about it, it was 40 miles due west of Walt Disney World. So I did that, and I worked every summer in college, a different role in the show at Walt Disney World, and just fell in love with the hospitality business and industry. So several different lines of business at Walt Disney World grew after I graduated to salaried leadership roles, resort operations, sales and marketing. After about 6, 7 years out here working, I left cold turkey and went to graduate school. Went up to the Cornell Hotel School, where they have an MBA program that is focused in hospitality. So I did that program. After that is how I landed here in Las Vegas, where I was the director of loyalty marketing for Wynn and Encore, as well as the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. I was there for the opening of both Encore and the opening of the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, and stayed there for about 4 years. And then I went back to Disney, but on the other coast at Disneyland, led the sales team at Disney Vacation Club, which is Disney's version of timeshare. So I did that for a few years, and I just share all of that. By the way, I think I forgot one. Gaylord Palms Resort in Orlando. I did that back in 2002 for the opening for a few years there as well. But I just share all of those career stops because they were all important. Because when I got to that Disneyland job, I was about 2.5 years into it. I'm like, hold on a minute. My favorite part about all these jobs so far have been the times when my leaders have sent me to like leadership development workshops. And so I wanted to see if I could figure out how to like do that and be in that environment for a living. So one thing led to another. I started blogging. I started practicing my writing. I started dabbling and doing some speaking and some coaching on the side. And then finally, I transitioned. And for about the last 6 or 7 years, I've been an author, speaker, consultant. We've got a few books out into the world now. Lead with Hospitality back in 2021. We just came out with Give Hospitality, a Leadership Fable, which just came out last week on July 8th. So we're excited. We get a lot of feedback, a lot of buzz about that. A lot of my clients reaching out saying they received their copies. So yeah, that's kind of where we are now. And it's been a hell of a ride. It's been a messy one, but it's been a beautiful mess.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations on getting that book, the second book published. Good for you. That's awesome to hear.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go all the way back. Let's go back to college hoops, right? Because, yeah. So if you're walking on, that means a bunch of people told you, yeah, we're all good. We don't need you here. Go somewhere else, right? How was that experience like?
Yeah, it was awesome. I wish I could go back. And for anybody listening that is young and up and comers, you know, I ended up only lasting 1 year. So I got there, and there was Florida Southern College was like Division II powerhouse in basketball, actually, and baseball and golf. Um, uh, there's been several like Major League Baseball players come out of there. Brett Tomko for the Reds back in the day. Um, but so anyway, there were a few of us though that walked on. We were on the what they called the gray team in practice. There was like the red jerseys, the white jerseys, and then we wore gray t-shirts because we were like the scout team. So it
Yeah.
was neat. It was a cool role to have looking back. And even in the moment, I was like, this is pretty damn cool. Because like I was a pretty good high school player. All of us were pretty good high school. Then you get to the next level and you get rude awakening pretty quickly. But what we would do is we would like be the scout team. So I would be the point guard, or oftentimes like the slasher, or the guy that would bring the ball to the floor and get the offense started for the other team. Pretend.
Yep.
I got a kick out of that, and so that became my role. Another role I had that was just kind of organic was like it turns out apparently like back in 1997 when this was 1997 and 98, back when you had to like make the Powerade in those big old you know barrels of like a
Oh,
glass.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
So like apparently I was really good at it. And like it was like the kid from Kentucky, like they would know if I made it or they would know if I didn't make it. So like we'd be stretching, after like getting ready for practice, and somebody take a sip of the Powerade. And if I didn't make it, they'd be like, "Who made this?" Somebody get Kentucky makes the Powerade. Nobody makes it like Kentucky. So I ended up taking pride in like my role in the show, and I was a good practice guy. And then during the games, we all had to wear our suits. We didn't dress out, but we took pride in helping the coaches and letting the guys know when the shot clock down to 15 seconds. And it was challenging, but what's ironic with practice and games and traveling and schoolwork as a freshman in college, you're all overwhelmed. To this day, I'm still so proud because that first year was like my best GPA in college.
Mm.
I had to be structured and disciplined with time management, with studying and stuff. So it was a great experience. And if there's one regret I do have in life, I have many, but one of them is I should have just stuck around. Like that would have been neat to keep going, even if I didn't play, even if I didn't even dress. I just loved the game of basketball so much that I wish I had never stopped.
It's funny, isn't it? I actually played in a golf tournament the pre last weekend, and I was in a cart with a guy I'd never met before, super nice guy, and we got to chit chatting, and I told him he asked me just about where I went to school, and I went through school on a baseball scholarship, and I went to Nevada Reno, and he actually played I think he said D3. He didn't say the school, but he played D3 basketball. And he asked me how I liked it. And I said, I loved every fucking thing about it, like every single thing about it. Weight room at 6 in the morning, loved it. Practice, loved it. Conditioning, loved it. Coaches screaming at me, loved it. I said, the only reason I left is because I met my wife. And I knew that was, here I am 33 years later with an awesome woman. And I never regret walking away from baseball. It was by far the best decision I've ever made. And it was easy, even though baseball had been my entire life right up until I met her. But I loved everything about it for a lot of the reasons you just talked about. Like I loved the structure to it. I loved the discipline and the challenge of it, and challenging yourself to get better. And it equipped me so well to go out into the real world. And those lessons that I learned translated directly to being a better husband, to being a better father, to being a better leader in business. They make you better at everything, but you got to be willing to do the work,
That's
got to be
right.
willing to grind it out. And that's a hard thing. It's not always fun while you're in it, but looking back on it, I loved all of it. It's wild, isn't it? When you look back on
It
it.
really is. And I actually, that my first book that I wrote was actually self-published just to see if I could like write a book and figure out the process. And that book is called Ball Games to Boardrooms. And the subtitle is Leadership, Business, and Life Lessons from Our Coaches We Never Knew We Needed.
Mm.
All those things that we learned in sports growing up, that we can apply those little nuggets and those little dimes that those coaches would pass along to us. We apply those today in our jobs. It's amazing what can happen for like our mindset, our heart set, the way we approach our relationships, and really how much joy and success we're able to actually have. So yeah, man, if this part of my career like fizzles out, like an act three for me is definitely going to be something in sports, whether it's coaching or being a part of one of these organizations. That I've grown up. I'm passionate about the Las Vegas Aces, man. WNBA, like I'm obsessed. They come on at 5 o'clock Pacific, so I got to jump.
Totally. Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's funny. I say the same thing. If someone said if money was no object to you, what would you do? I said I'd probably coach college hockey or college baseball. Like if I could just pick my job, it would probably be one of those. Not pro. Like I'm not like I know what that lifestyle's like. And like those guys earn their money, but I think I'd coach college for sure. But yeah, so you talked about all of your stops along the way, and let's start there. Start with some of the learnings you got from your early gigs and some of the things that went wrong that you had to that kind of taught you how the world worked as you were making your way as this young kid from Kentucky, fresh out of college.
Yeah, first thing is like I think we've all been there where we're humbled a little bit. You're coming from your hometown and you're in your little bubble there. Then especially those of us that went away to school. And first thing was just the different cultures and people from different places. And you start to really go, at first it's kind of a shock, but then you start to really go, this is pretty sweet. This is pretty cool where you get to actually learn different perspectives and where other people are coming from. So that was great. First off, out of the first crack out of the box, as my high school basketball coach used to say. As soon as I got to Florida and was in some of these classes with some other people from different parts of the world, even. So that was good. But then, like the working part, like you, I don't know about everybody listening, but for me, it was um, it was challenging to sort of like accept the fact that not everybody had each other's best interest in mind.
Mm.
Like that was as I think back, it's a good question. As I think back to those times, and we've all been there when we're in the dorm room and we're like calling home, scared to death freshman year. Or my case, like I'm 45 years old, like last night calling my mom and dad, Um, but but I can remember like getting out into the real world and really getting a rude awakening with that as well, being a leader. So like you roll into a leadership role at like age 21, 22, and like there were so many. That's the good part about Disney and maybe that part of the world and right there in Central Florida. It was overwhelmingly positive, and the majority anyway were like they wanted to help the new guy and help the young kid. But I was a little bit sort of culture shocked with just the amount of people that did not want to help, and in fact were trying to trip me up on purpose. So yeah, those were some tough things to go through then. But then what I don't know about you and everybody listening or watching, but everywhere I would go after that, and then even to this day, as I'm out here as a third party consultant in a lot of cases, going into organizations and working with teams, working with leaders, I still see it. I still feel the pushback. I still feel the people that are walking into a leadership development workshop like this, like you can't teach me. But then by the end, they come around, and I'm just like, you have to just, I guess, go through that part, the human behavior thing, where it's a bit of a journey to get people to buy in and to really connect with them before they're able to open up, which is kind of why I do the work I do today.
No, I love that. So it's funny because like I said earlier, I've been with my wife for 33 years, and she has told me since we met, you need to be more selfish. You need to look out for yourself more. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. I get it. I understand the concept. Like you can't be so giving that you get taken advantage of, but you can't change the mindset at its core because it's not the right thing to do. So, those like the 24/7 show where they'll follow a football team around or a hockey team around or whatever. Showtime did one on baseball, and they followed. This was before the Giants won all their World Series, and so they followed the Giants around during spring training. And they followed around like three in particular, three or four bubble guys. And so, for those that don't know, a major league roster, you have 40 guys, 40 to 45 guys that show up at spring training. They got to cut it down to 25 at some point. Most people know the 20 guys that already have made it, and most people know the 10 guys are going to get sent back down to the minors. But there's 10 guys in the middle that probably played on the team last year that might not be on it again this year. And there's 5 guys that are trying to make it and get called up from the minors, and they follow them around. And so my wife watches 3 or 4 episodes of this show, and she calls me at work and she said, "Hey, I'm watching the show and I just have to tell you 2 things." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, what do you got?" And she said, "One, um, I don't know how you lived in this environment without throwing up every day. There is so much pressure." I said, "Look, those guys are under way more pressure than I ever was. I was a college athlete. These guys are like professional. This is their living. They pay their families this way. You're talking about a guy that's going to make either 60 grand a year or 600 grand a year, depending on that decision. It is life-changing money for those guys." So, got it. What's the second thing? She said, "Now I get it. Now I understand why you think the way you think, because the only people that can understand what you're going through in those situations are other people that are going through it with you. And so even though you're competing with guys for the same job and you want to win, you can empathize with the other guy and you actually do things to help him get better. You just want to raise your game a little bit better than his so you get picked, right? It was like being on the scout team. You weren't going to screw around being on the scout team so that you could hose the starting point guard and hopefully take over his job. You were trying to help him get better, but you wanted to raise your game at the same time too. And so I love that you talk about that because that never goes away in life, right? You have to kind of teach people that it's in their best interest to be a team player because some people aren't wired that way naturally. And that can be a hard thing to overcome sometimes.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, man. I actually went to NBA Summer League last night over here at UNLV.
Nice.
Like when I get stressed and, anxiety, put out a new book, not sure how it's going to go. The world is falling apart, literally. Am I going to be able to get another client? Like, am I going to be able to make a living out here? It's like scary entrepreneurial moment right now. So like I went home to Kentucky last week, was with my family, watched my little niece play AAU basketball tournament. I'm around basketball there. Uh, Come home, my wife and I, we go to the Las Vegas Aces game Saturday morning, played the Valkyries, big win for the Aces, 104-102 final. Last night, I went over to NBA Summer League, and I noticed those guys. And Summer League's a really neat atmosphere. I don't know if you've ever been out here for it. Highly recommend. This is year 21, and I was out here back in 2008 when it was like only 6 or 7 years into it kind of thing. And there's nobody in there. You could I would be walking around and like Anthony Davis is like standing right next to me.
Oh my goodness.
It's still a little bit like that where you don't know who you're going to run into or see. But anyway, I went over there last night and I'm noticing those guys. Some of them are 25, 26, 27 years old, still trying to make a roster. Others are fresh out of college and they were lottery picks and they're just trying to get some good film, going into the real training camp here in a few months. But I noticed them bonding. And I noticed like the older guys, because I remember like even like we had Justin Edwards, former Kentucky Wildcat. He's been out for a couple of years now. He's out there. He had 5 threes last night, straight up baller. He had like a double-double. And then Janai Broom from Auburn. He's on the same Philadelphia 76ers team. So I noticed guys like that picking up other guys, and then vice versa. That's just something special, I believe, in sports, and it's something special that if we can like bring ourselves as leaders to still embody some of these things in corporate America, in our environments at work, wherever we work, can completely change the game.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love it. And there's so many parallels and different points in your life if you look, or different aspects of your life if you look and if you identify them. You had talked earlier about being sent to like leadership training and management training and those kind of things. What do you think it was about those things that was attractive to you that made you realize, hey, I as a kid, hospitality, totally got it. I'm in the hospitality industry, but now I'm exposed to this whole other part of it. And that's really attractive to me. What do you think about it? What's so attractive to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And now that I know what I know about sort of like emotional intelligence, and now that I know what I know 20 plus years later about things like, doing the Clifton Strengths Finder stuff, where you have your top 5 strengths. And now that I know what I know, like Patrick Lencioni's most recent work is, 3 years ago, they came out with the 6 types of working genius. So we all have two working geniuses, two working competencies, and two working frustrations. And so, for example, my two working geniuses are wonder and galvanizing. Pretty good point guard type geniuses. You're galvanized the
Right.
team. One of my top five strengths, now that I know what I know, is a learner. Apparently, I love to learn. So for me, when I look back and I go, no wonder I loved those environments and still do. Only now I'm in the front of the room instead of sitting in the chairs kind of thing or at the tables. No wonder I loved those because I was always learning something. And it was an opportunity when we do those, group discussions at your table, or everybody stand up and partner up and go do this conversation. You got to galvanize people and you got to learn from people and you got to connect with people. And whether I was an up and comer all those years, or times like now when now I'm facilitating conversations among a lot of times 20 somethings and 30 somethings, but also mixed in with 40, 50, and 60 somethings as well. I think that's why is it just fits who I am. It fits my passions and it fits what I think I'm best at, which is that galvanizing and inspiring and encouraging type role.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. It's funny too, like you wouldn't have known that at the time, but you knew enough that like, hey, that's really attractive to me. I got to find a way to get more of that. I got to find a way to make that a bigger part of my life. And I think a lot of successful people, not all, but a lot of successful people follow those things where they feel passionate about those or feel energized by those. And I think that's what separates a lot of people from success and kind of missing success is that if you don't care as much about what you do, and that's the crazy thing about it is everything's important when you think about it, right? So like I'm in the grocery business and it's easy to say, oh, cashier at a grocery store, that's what I do. Well, like people don't eat without your job. Like it's that important. Like literally you're feeding people. But you don't think about it in that respect. You think about it as I got to weigh the bananas and punch the code in and put them in the bag and put them in the cart. But when you see those things, it's important to go after them. So how did you start to pursue those? Like at what point in your career did you say, hey, I've been experiencing these things. I know it's good for me. Clearly you're taking on kind of increased roles of leadership, but how did you determine that, okay, I want to pivot from what I was doing to making this a full-time thing?
Yeah, good question. I remember we were opening Disney's Pop Century Resort at Walt Disney World, and it was in the fall of 2003, which was 2 years after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
It was special because it was like the first new resort opening and the first new opening of anything, at least at Walt Disney World, since the tragic events of 9/11. Big deal. And I had gone to Gaylord Palms for a couple of years, and I came back to the Disney company to do this opening. I was front desk manager on the opening team. A bit of an all-star team too. They took people from the parks, for example, that had never worked in hotels before. They took me from the outside, kind of, although I'd interned 4 straight summers at Walt Disney World before, but I came in from the outside having worked at Gaylord hotels. They took people from other lines of business and brought them to this resort to open it. Okay. And so it was a pretty neat deal. And they would bring in fancy Disney executives to come speak to us and inspire us and rally us up and get us ready to rock and roll for our grand opening. This guy, Lee Cockrell, is an absolute Disney legend. He's retired now. He says on his LinkedIn, retired and inspired. He's an awesome guy. I looked up to this guy. All of us did. He's one of those old school Disney leaders. When you're an up and comer, you would be like, I'm gonna be like him one day. Well, he was the executive vice president of Walt Disney World operations. Period. Overall,
Yeah.
all the resorts, all the theme parks, both water parks, all those holes of golf, the transportation, monorails, buses, watercraft, everything operational related reported up to Lee Cockrell. And he came to speak to us. And he gave us time. He's like, you make any questions for me? And of course, I'm that guy, I asked him some question what would be your best advice to people like us? We're relatively, we're a bunch of 20 somethings here, young in our careers, at least the leadership team. Here's what he told me. He's like, spend the first 10 to 15 years of your career doing as many different things as you possibly can. And then you'll figure out a couple things. One, what you're best at doing. Two, what you're most passionate about. And then once you find that, zero in on it, and then spend the remainder of your career doing that thing that you're most passionate about, and it lends itself to you being able to offer your most natural strengths. And that advice, I could not have taken that more literally. If you think first, my story I led off with, like because Lee Cockrell, when I was like 22, 23, said that, and I was like, okay. So I went and did all these different things. And still to this day, like here I am, 45, I'll turn 46 next month. And, I've got some pretty big clients. I've got some small clients. I've got some people, some organizations that I've worked with a couple of years ago and 3 years ago. And I've been spending all day today, like I'm emailing people that I've just connected with, just trying to get out and make contacts with this book we just put out. Like I'm emailing them like one off, just saying, I was at your property. I was at your restaurant. I talked to you, whenever that was. And I sent you, spent a bunch of money. I sent you copies of this book, and here's an action plan that we built. I hope it helps your team. Just because I'm still pursuing the next thing. I'm still pursuing like working with other types of industries, other types of clients that I believe this message and all of our leadership development tools and resources, I believe it can help change people's lives.
Yeah, it's funny how those little moments, and I don't know if little moments are the right way to think about it, but like for him, like it's a one-off question, right? But it's a life-changing moment for you. And so now you come full circle and you're, like you said, you're standing in front of the room now and you're the one answering those questions. When you look back on that ride, what's one thing that you would have done differently now that you know what you know? And what's one thing you got 100% right when you kind of look back on it that got you where you are?
Great question, man. One thing that I got wrong was it's embarrassing. One thing I got wrong was thinking that just because I went to the Cornell Hotel School for graduate school, my life was going to change forever automatically, period, the end. Cue Tinkerbell, it's all going to end magically. I didn't fully grasp the part where that's about 1/32 of the pie, because the rest of it, you got to show up, man. You got to be that person. You got to walk the talk. Not that I didn't, but I just thought it was going to be a little bit more of a fast pass than it has been.
Yep.
One thing I got right is probably, I think one thing I got right was actually leaving Disney. Because if I never did, I mean, I left 3 times, but if I never did, I don't think I ever would have learned all the things that I've learned. And if I never did, I don't think that I would have been able to make this dream of being an entrepreneur and starting a business and growing a business. And by the way, doing what I love to do, speaking, writing, inspiring, and encouraging. I'd be somewhere working, wearing the radio and having the cell phone and 15-hour shifts and managing a team at Epcot somewhere, like.
Yep. Yeah. Well, so it's so funny because you held up the business cards and talked about like hustling to get the word out on your book. That directly supports the first thing you talked about, like coming out of Cornell Management, right? Oh, so like now I'm on the primrose path, the sea will part, and I'll just kind of waltz down easy street to prosperity, which is fucked. It's never good. I've had that perception as well, by the way. So I'm guilty of what you just talked about. So I feel very comfortable chiming in on this conversation because I'm the CEO of a company now, and it's not anything what people think it is. People think it's like you get to set your own schedule, you get to do whatever you want. It's the exact opposite. You're responsible for everything. It never ends. You're totally accountable for all of it. At least the way I think about it, if you do it right, that's what you are. And that's not a comfortable position to be in most of the time. Like you got to show up, you got to work, you got to do it. And if you don't do it, nobody else is going to come save you or bail you out. And so, but by the same token, I'm with you. Like I'd rather be doing that than having someone look at it. I go back to like Office Space. Did you get the memo on the TPS reports? Like,
Right.
like I can empathize with that completely, right? So what was your first foray out? Like, you've done all the testing, you've decided, hey, this leadership, the coaching, the teaching, the training, that's what I'm good at. I want to start doing this on my own. What was your first step into that? How did you initially start it?
Good question. Fall of 2018. I wrote an email cold turkey to this guy that he did all of our training and orientation experiences at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. And I remembered him and I remembered how moving, like I'm corny and fluffy, but it was. It was like so inspiring because then when I went to do that opening, it was right after the next time. So the world ends in 9/11, and then my generation anyway, we finally climb out of the hole, we get back on our feet. And then the financial crash of 2008 and 2009.
Yeah.
So then a bunch of us courageous, partly probably twisted people decided, let's move back to Vegas and open a brand new casino on the 50-yard line of the Las Vegas Strip, the Cosmopolitan. It was crazy. It was like November of 2010. Like scary. The financial state of this country and the world was not great, which made the opening that much more special. So I wrote this guy an email, cold turkey. You don't remember me, but I know you, and I was that one of the people in your sessions, and I was the director of loyalty marketing, blah, blah, blah. I want to become an author, speaker, and consultant like you. And I would be honored to be on your team as a contract facilitator. And one thing led to another. He invites me, tries me on for size, stands in the back of the room, watches me do a 90-minute thing at United Airlines all those years ago. And he ends up bringing me on to a big project that he got with United Airlines. And I did it for a couple months, and I'm pretty good in front of the room. And he pulls me aside at a cocktail party, like just 3-4 months in. And he's like, I think I got an idea for us to work together. He had signed on a new client down in Miami, a company that was a commercial real estate firm. They had retail, they had 2 residential towers, they had a boutique hotel, mixed use stuff, hospitality dream. And they had identified 20 leaders that were in middle management that that company knew was going to be their future senior leaders, and they
Yep.
weren't leadership. So they hired this guy that I was working for. They hired him to come up with 4 2-day workshops that they would do quarterly for a whole year. And so he pulls me aside and he goes, I got it. Why don't you come aboard, work direct, like actually join him full time? He paid me a salary. I was his director of training and communications. And I got another like paid MBA, got better at my writing, got better at my speaking, learned how to create these live learning leadership development experiences. And he was a hard coach. Like he's pretty rough on me. And it was kind of one of those like a coach like beating you up, and it's really hard when you're going through it, but it helped me learn, and I got way better. And so that was my first soiree, and I fell in love with it. And I'm like, I got really, really good at most parts of it. And during the pandemic, everybody, of course, pulled their contracts, and so he had to let me go. So that's when I threw out the Hail Mary and my passion project, Lead with Hospitality. That was a Word document. I did the same thing. I wrote a cold turkey email to the great John Gordon, the guy that wrote the Energy Bus, that's been on the Wall Street Journal top 10 list for the last 12 years, the Energy
Mm.
Bus. And I'm like, you don't know me, but I know you. Like, you're a former athlete. I'm a former athlete. You write about leadership. I write about leadership, or I want to be a leadership guy. I'm like, you're a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'd be honored if you would write the foreword to this book. That dude wrote me back 15 minutes later. I was sitting literally right here in this chair. I fell out of this chair. And not only did he say yes, he'll do the forward. He's like, I usually don't say yes to these, but I took a look at some of the stuff and something tells me I'm supposed to say yes. 15 minutes later, he wrote me back. And said, by the way, do you have a publisher yet? I was like, I haven't gotten that far. I don't really know how to do that. He introduced me to Matt Holt, who was his publisher all those years at Wiley. They did 22 books together. Matt had just left Wiley and gone to Ben Bella Books. By the next Friday, me and Matt Holt were on a Zoom for an hour and a half. And he goes, all right, man, I'm going to take a shot on you. And he did. And I ended up starting a business called Lead with Hospitality LLC. And here we are.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, one of the things we're fortunate on the podcast, we attract really high caliber people. You're no exception for sure. And we see common themes through those people, right? And one of the themes that we see consistently is when people take action, it leads them to a good spot. You don't know when you're taking the action, the spot it's going to eventually lead you to. In most instances, we found that some people have been very intentional and they've known their target and they've zeroed in on it. And it still takes them 15, 20 years to get there, but they get there. But most people wind up in a different spot doing something that they really love and building a really successful life. And success can be measured a lot of different ways. It can be measured financially, it can be measured in contentment, it can be measured in mental and physical health. There's lots of ways to measure success. But when we see the guests, when we talk to the guests that we talk to, it's always through taking action. And so that's a great example, right? So you're going after this guy that's big time, has made it, doesn't know you from Adam. You send him a cold email, and for whatever reason, it resonates. Now, I would say for whatever reason is kind of dumbing it down a little bit. You've gone through years of training on how to communicate with people, on how to build leadership skills. So all of those little steps that you were taking as you were building your life and building your career lead you to that point. A lot of people would say it was luck. And I always say luck is where preparation meets opportunity. There's not a lot of luck about it. So you took a whole bunch of actions, didn't know when you were taking those actions that they were leading you to that spot. Yet here you are because you continued to take action. And I think it's so important to call that out to the audience. So I love that part of it, man. Love that part of it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I love that quote too. My first mentor I had in Las Vegas was a former hockey player from Canada, and he went to Cornell and played hockey. And he was my mentor when I got there, and he would tell me that all the time. He's like, there is no such thing as luck, but instead, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I've lived by it for the last 15 plus years.
It's the truth. It's the way to go. Have you ever noticed it's the same people that get lucky over and over again? Like, it must just be a coincidence, huh? They must have been born with a horseshoe over their head or something. Now, it couldn't be that they've busted their ass and they keep putting themselves in situations by which they can grow and learn and become successful. So, yeah, I love it. So, like your business now, your coaching and like talk a little bit about that. What do you guys do? What do you focus on? Who do you work with?
Yeah, predominantly what we do is there's predominantly what we do, and there's what I'd rather predominantly be doing. So, what we predominantly do are live learning experiences, we call them, which are leadership development workshops. Picture like 12 to 25 people, leaders, all different levels of leadership. And we go in and we do like workshops. And I got a team of like 10 or 12 people. United Airlines is my biggest client, and they've had us all over their system for the last 4 years. Multiple different work groups, they call them, which are different divisions, everything from airport operations to flight operations to in-flight operations to technical operations, contact center, so call center operations. We even do work. I've got a person right now at the Denver Flight Training Center, teaching their instructors how to do it like we do it. And we've branded our style called edutainment. I didn't make it up. I just picked it up from somebody along the way, the Disney thing, or one of these authors that I used to love back in the day and still do, Mark Sanborn. I think he actually told me that term, edutainment, which is create an environment for learning in a fun and memorable way. So
Sure.
that's predominantly what we do. I also do keynotes. So like Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, for example, 2 summers ago, they opened a brand new office building, beautiful, in Hudson Yards in Manhattan. And they had a hospitality summit where they got all of their vendors that run that building, in terms of like, they wanted to create some buzz around this thing, being like, look at this beautiful office building we just opened up. Come back to work, all you remote working people. So they had this hospitality summit to just inspire the people that did the maintenance, the people that do the food and beverage, the people that work the concierge, to basically be great at hospitality to the workers. So I was the keynote speaker to that. I've been a keynote speaker for several different organizations, different conventions and conferences, big and small. I'd rather do more of the keynote stuff to get the conversation going. And then I've always had the dream of it. And there's sometimes that this actually works out. I'll never forget when I started doing this 5-6 years ago. There was like a major keynote person at this big leadership conference, and they would have series of conferences where they just bring all their leaders. Like 5-6 weeks in a row, they'd bring 1,200. The next week they bring another 1,200. And anyway, I was a part of the team that would do the breakout sessions. Well, since then, I've always wanted to be the person that does the keynotes, and then my team would do the breakout sessions of all of our content and all of our experiences. And there's a few times when that is absolutely what happens. I just want to do that more. So, Montage in Laguna Beach brought us in a few years ago. Choice Hotels, I've spoken at their convention here at Mandalay Bay 2 years in a row in 22 and 23. Highgate Hotels, they're a management company and they manage really cool, a lot of times boutique, swanky hotels, particularly in Manhattan. That little group, that little pod of vice presidents, we hit it off. So they kept inviting me back to work with different teams, leadership teams in their different hotels up there. United Airlines, of course, the Statler Hotel at Cornell University. What I did is I called them as soon as I got this book out. One of my mentors along the way out here in Vegas, he's a Cornellian, and he went back and he's the general manager at the Statler Hotel at Cornell, which is on campus. And I called him and I'm like, all right, I don't have like millions of dollars like all these other Cornell people, but I've got some really, really good content here and I wanted to gift it. So I gifted it to him, to
Mm,
the school. The hotel is a part of the school.
yep.
So for the last 4 years, the culture, the leadership culture at the Statler Hotel at Cornell University is lead with hospitality. And so that's a big thing I do 5, 6 times a year. I go back to school and I work with the students, the student leaders, the full-time leaders, even sometimes some of the frontline hourly people, because I have now guest experience, guest service training as well. Sorry, I lost you. There you are.
Nope, all good.
So predominantly it's the workshop stuff with the occasional keynote in there. I do leadership coaching, just not a ton of it. Had a partner, Dartmouth Health. So there's a hospital in Vermont. Just they found me and they reached out and they're like, "Do you do leadership coaching?" And I had forgotten that it's totally on my website, but I hadn't really done much of it. And I just said, "Sure, yes, absolutely, I do." And so I just figured out an 8-week program, and it ended up being awesome. And so she loved it, I loved it, and so there's an opportunity to potentially do some more of that. So yeah, man, it's just all about however I can encourage, inspire people, whether they're up and
Yep.
coming leaders or seasoned leaders. That's what we specialize in.
Yeah, I love that. So when you do keynotes, what does that process look like? I would imagine you're trying to hit a target that's set by the customer. Is that or the client or whatever you call them, right? Is that the right approach, or do they say, "We love your content, come talk about your content to our people"?
It's a little bit of both, but the approach I take, just because this is how I learned from a great keynoter himself, Mark Sanborn, New York Times bestselling author of the book The Fred Factor. Highly recommend. I have my own books now, and I'm still out here selling this dude's book. Like, so Fred Factor, they just did a 20-year anniversary of it. Amazing. It sold like 1.6 million copies domestically and internationally. It's great. So he taught me to just make it about them. Like make it, sure, it's your content. Sure, it's your principles, illustrations, and applications. But what he was great at doing and what he taught me to do, and what I believe we're getting better and better and better at doing is we don't necessarily have all the answers for our clients, but we do promise we're always going to ask the right questions. So what we've done a good job of, and what I like to pride myself in doing, is asking the client, what is it you would like your people to think, know, feel, and do when they leave this keynote, this experience, this workshop? And I'll just listen, I'll take notes. And then what we've been able to do is align their values to some of the things that we talk about and that we have in our content and our experiences. So it's a little bit of both. Yes, I'm bringing my principles, illustrations, and tactical, like practical applications on how to bring these things to life, but I align it to exactly what the organization needs and wants their people to be able to do, especially in light of their culture, their mission, their vision, and most importantly, their values.
Man, that's got to be some very cool stuff. That gives me energy just thinking about it because like I'm cut from a similar cloth as you in that I like to take action. I like to do stuff. I like to inspire other people. That's what the whole point of the podcast is, right? Take control of your life. Like you get to choose what your life is about. I'm not telling you to be a ballerina or an auto mechanic or an attorney or an artist, or you get to be whatever you want. Totally get it. But why not be the very best that? that you can be? And why not take every single step you can to give yourself the best possible chance to do that? And you see so many people that, for a variety of reasons, won't take those steps. And that's the entire point of like our podcast, which it sounds like is the entire point of your leadership content, right? I mean, you
A
can
big part of
do,
it.
yeah,
Big
go ahead.
part of it. Yeah, it's a big part of it. We love the Carol Dweck research on growth mindset.
Yep.
I mean, Stanford psychologist for 44 years, so good at it that she would have like students come down almost like coming to the altar at a church service, like after the semester or during, they'd be like, Professor, this is what I read. Professor, they'd be like, Professor, can you please package all this stuff up? Because your class is literally changing my life. That's what her students were telling her at Stanford. And then finally in 2007, Professor Carol Dweck did. She wrote a book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success.
I love that book, by the way. I've read it. I love it. Yes.
Yeah, she boiled down 44 years worth basically of research into a book. And it's basically the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset and all the positives and all the outcomes that we now know are true when we choose to have a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. It's really a lot of stuff what you're talking about here in the basis of the Salty Ginger Talk podcast.
Yeah. Yep. I love that book. And I reference it frequently because we publish 5 episodes a week. We do 3 interview episodes. We publish an interview Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then I do a one-off on Tuesday and Thursday and cover a specific topic. And I hit mindset and specifically Carol Dweck, growth versus fixed mindset, very frequently. Because like, I don't need to invent things to know that they're right. I know a good idea when I steal it, you know? And but I love her approach. It's like, here it is for everybody, and here's all of the research. Like, it's not me guessing. There's empirical evidence that shows these things are true. Plus, you can just look around everywhere in life and see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? It's wild to see if somebody's unhappy, you can know without really talking to them the choices that they're making. If somebody is happy, you can know the choices that they're making too. Like, it's very obvious once you see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So lead with hospitality. Talk a little bit about the concepts in there, like what's in the book, just broad strokes. So I might ask, we want people to buy the book clearly, but talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's basically the foundation is this. I wanted to know why we love some leaders and we follow some leaders and we don't follow other ones and we don't like other ones. And so based upon my research, I had a lot of like just light bulb moments. And basically what I realized is we love our favorite leaders for the same reasons we love our favorite hospitality destinations or favorite hospitality brands, whether it be Disney, Marriott, your favorite bar, your favorite restaurant, your favorite grocery store, whatever the case may be. And it's 9 times out of 10, less about what they say, less about what they do, but all about how they make us feel.
Mm.
That's what I've done. Is there's 4 parts to the book: connect, serve, engage, inspire, in that order. So for example, in that order, so how often you and I out here working and coming up through the ranks, people listening and watching, how often have we as a leader tried to, maybe we just got the job, we just got into a new role and we jump in there and we start trying to coach and inspire right off the bat before we've successfully connected with people or served them in any way. And how does that usually work out? Not so
And
well.
not well, not well.
Yeah, falls a little flat. But I realized when I was reading, I came across Jonathan Haidt. Jonathan Haidt, NYU psychologist. And so he wrote a book called The Happiness Hypothesis. And in his book, he paints a picture of what's going on inside the human brain at all times. I do this in our sessions and our keynotes. People be like, man, we're going to talk about science. I'm like, well, if we're going to be leaders of humans, it behooves you and me to like understand human behavior and human psychology. So here's what Jonathan Haidt basically found, and his research inspired Chip and Dan Heath to write their book, Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard. And if they could do that and sell 12 million copies of their book, translated in 48 different languages, mine hasn't necessarily sold that many copies just yet. But if they could use this research, maybe I can too. So here's what he says. He's like, picture a human person sitting on top of a 6-ton elephant. And you know how we have the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain?
Yep.
Well, the left side of the brain, as we know, is responsible for the logic, analysis, intellect. Whereas the right side of the brain is responsible for creativity, emotions, feelings, imagination. So here's Jonathan Haidt's metaphor, if you will, of what's going on inside the human brain at all times. Human person sitting on top of a 6-ton elephant. The person sitting on top, we'll call that person the rider. And that represents the left side of the brain, the logic. The elephant represents the right side of the brain, the emotions. And here's the takeaway. If the rider and the elephant, if the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain ever disagree on which direction to go or whether or not to spring into action, who's going to win the argument?
The elephant. Yep.
Elephant every time for a few reasons. One, it's a damn 6-ton weight advantage for one thing. It's a big old elephant. And the other reason is I left a part out. The elephant, the right brain is responsible for providing the energy and enthusiasm to move, the energy and enthusiasm to change directions. And so if we don't pique the interest, if we don't motivate the elephant, the human's not going to have any energy nor enthusiasm to move, to change directions, to step up, to do more. So it can all be summed up with a John Maxwell quote that we love, we use in all of our stuff, that says, you can't move people into action unless you first move them with emotion. And so that's where this whole lead with hospitality thing came about. So if you peel back up to 30,000 feet, it's like, is it logical for all these people, me included, my family included, to keep saving up tens of thousands of dollars to go on a Disney cruise again? Is it logical for all these people to keep saving their money and go back to stand in line for 90 minutes to write It's a Small World again? Or is it the emotional connections that motivate us and drive us to do it? The same thing is true for you and I as leaders. So unless we can create an environment where people are not only emotionally connected to you and each other on their team, but emotionally connected to the brand, to the purpose, to the mission, we're rarely going to get them to do more and become more and deliver their absolute best. And so that's where the spirit of this whole Lead with Hospitality platform really lies.
I love that. And I have a personal anecdote that dovetails perfectly in that. So, at one point, so I've been in the grocery business a long time, and I had a supplier that wanted to take me on a plant tour, and they made cheese. So their plant was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So not shocking. So they wanted to, I lived in New England at the time, and they brought me to a football game where the Patriots, who was the team I was and still am a huge fan of. And you know I'm a fan because I'm still a fan, and now they suck. So it was very easy to be a fan during the Belichick Brady days. It's a lot harder to be a fan now, but I'm a diehard. So they invite me to this game. It's in Green Bay. It's in January. It's like minus 15. In my hotel, I had a bottle of water on the windowsill, and it froze overnight inside my hotel room. It froze solid. So it was that cold. So I go to the game. I don't know if you've ever been to Lambeau Field, but it's in the middle of a neighborhood. Like it's literally tucked in. People park on people's lawns. There's people that make their mortgage payments from the parking fees that they get for the 8 Green Bay home games. So it's like in this neighborhood, all of a sudden there's this huge field. The parking lot that is there is way too small, but it's full. Like there, it is jammed and it's full of people tailgating wearing Green Bay gear. So it's minus 15. The Patriots boat race. This was during the Brady Belichick days. It was, I don't know, 2005, 2006. They boat raced the Packers 35 nothing. Like it was, the game was over 7 minutes into the first quarter. When I leave, the parking lot's still full. There's like not a spot anywhere. All these people are back out at their grills. And not only that, but it was after they'd remodeled the stadium, they built an atrium with a new pro shop in it. And the atrium had a line full of people that were all wearing Green Bay Packer gear, waiting to get into the pro shop to buy more Green Bay Packer gear. And so there's an emotional connection that sports generates. Like we people heard us talking about our emotional connections with sports. Now it's a lot easier in that environment, I think, to create that emotional connection because whatever, I grew up playing baseball as a kid and I have fond memories of it and blah, blah, blah. You could say the same thing about basketball, but creating that as a business or as a brand is hard, right? It's hard. And that's kind of where, you come in to try to help foster the mindset to get that done as a brand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun work to get in there. And quite frequently, as I mentioned before, people will walk in like this, like this is going to be boring. And we just found using the emotional connections and putting them in these spaces and inviting them to have these conversations. The way I like to talk about it is I believe it's conversations about the things that matter. And one of the things I realized doing this work is we all are different. We all come from different places and spaces and races, cultures, religions, parts of the world, especially when I do this work in hospitality. I mean, it's people from all over the world. Black people, white people, Latino people, Asian American people, indigenous people, gay people, straight people, transgender people, like Indian people. But one thing we all have in common is we're all human beings. And that's the magic. If you and I as leaders can just be human, that's the subtitle of this book. Be human, emotionally connect, and serve selflessly. I'm just here to tell you, man, like magic starts to happen. I got chills. I can't talk about this or do this enough. I still get chills. And I wrote this stuff like 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Finally was able to get it to the world in 2021. But it's magic. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. I would suspect that there's a little bit of gamification in your workshops. Do you gamify things to try to get interaction or win people over?
I mean, a form of gamification for sure. Yeah, it's very interactive. It's the only way I know how to do it. Like
Yeah.
I come from Disney and Vegas. So like that's pretty much how our experiences are. Like we got music going, like and I follow the cadence. Whether I'm doing a keynote or we're doing like a live learning experience, like a workshop. Mark Sanborn taught me this. Principle, illustration, application, over and over again. Principle. All right, here's now the topic we're going to talk about. Purpose. Illustration is I might have some stories about Disney, Bob and Sue and Richard, and Davion in the audience. I asked them, could they have some illustrations? And then boom, here's some practical applications on how you can bring a sense of purpose to life with your team. And I've got participant guides and like, like it's I tell people it's like church meets basketball camp meets corporate retreat. That's a lead with hospitality learning experience. It's like this vibe. Sometimes you're having conversations at your table with 5 or 6 other people. Sometimes you're standing up, partnering up, get the blood flowing, go to somewhere around the room. I'm playing freaking, we don't talk about Bruno or like Beauty and the Beast songs, and then people are like emotionally, you can see it, you can feel the emotion. And sometimes we're having conversations with one big happy family. So that's more of the vibe of our stuff.
Yeah, I love that. How do you, and maybe there's not a huge issue with this because most people in group settings aren't going to be super vocal about it, but how do you overcome or win over the people that, like you talked about, walk in like, I know this stuff, et cetera, or the, hey, it's just business and they don't want to make it personal and they don't want to have an emotional investment in it. How do you get through to them?
I make them the hero. So, Bob, you've been here for 30 years. What do you think? Whereas earlier in my career, even in this season of life, earlier in doing this, like my rookie year back 2018, 2019, when I was just getting started, I would think I had to be like the end all be all and have all the answers in the front of the room. But what I learned the magic can be to get people to sort of like come around and they'll come and tell me after the session. Sometimes they'll tell me like during the session, pull me aside during a break, and they'll be like, yo, I thought this was going to be different, man. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm sorry I was such a jackass when I first walked. Like that literally has been happening all over the country. So we'll ask them. So it's kind of like put them in the game. We like to call it the like game on switch. So like again from sports, like put them in the game. So instead of being on the sidelines thinking they're just going to come in and just check the box, go to the training, sign so they get credit for it. No. I'm going to put you in the game. So now they get to share their story. Now they get to be an authority on a topic. And I've noticed when they do that, when they have that opportunity to do that, and then 15 minutes later or 20 minutes later, they're listening more and they're engaging when other people are sharing their stories. both at their tables and as one big happy family. Cool little game we play. And let's face it, it kind of some of this stuff is like it's the same stuff over and over that we're doing in different, pockets of a big organization, or we're doing the same talk, the same sort of experience at multiple different locations. So we got to keep it fun for ourselves too. So that's one of the ways that my team and I have realized that we can really stay fulfilled, we can stay engaged by just tapping into those little nuances and watching the social sort of like network just kind of start to fire. It's really cool.
That is very cool. It reminds me. So I like you, especially in the retail world, it's not abnormal to have like a young charger and that like I've always been super aggressive. I've always been a hard charger. It's how I am. So I was in charge. I was responsible for people at a very young age. I think I was 22, 23, just like you. And you're talking about being in charge of people that have been at the business for 20 plus years and are a lot older than you. So you have literally no actual real world or professional benefit to them other than your mindset and your leadership skills. And so they used to move me around from store to store because I was kind of Mr. Fix It because I would take on problems and I would make changes and I was good at getting people to kind of understand those things. But one of the first places I went, managing all of your cashiers is kind of a full-time gig. You know how it is because if you've got a team, you need the people that are interacting with the public. They're your face. They're the face of your organization to the public, and you need them to be happy. You need them to be bought in. You need them to do their jobs correctly. And I worked in mine was a union shop. I don't know if there's a lot of unions in the hospitality. I assume there are. And so I had one guy. He was a very smart guy. He was actually a history professor who had decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and he was a cashier at our store. And so he knew the union contract, and he would cite the union contract. And so I talked to him and said, "Hey, totally got it. There are instances where I don't think I'm going to be able to meet all these things. What do you want me to do about those?" And he said, "Well, you have to. It's the contract." And I said, "Okay, if we're going to do that, we're going to do that." Got it. So I got an egg timer. I was like, I got to get through to this guy. So I got an egg timer. When people would leave on breaks, I would set the egg timer for 10 minutes. And I would literally go grab someone out of the park, not physically grab them and yank them in, but hey, time's up. And if they were smoking a cigarette, put it out. Time to get back to work. If they were this was back before cell phones. If they were on the payphone talking to someone, it's time to hang up, back to work. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, this is a bit, obsessive." And I said, "Rob, it's the contract. Like you told me these were the rules of engagement. If we're going to live by them, we're going to live by them. I'm a very reasonable guy. If you want to work out something whereby we can figure out how to work these situations where there are times where I'm going to need you guys to give a little bit to make the store operate correctly. And I can give a little bit when you need whatever it is. I understand lives. I've got kids. I've got other responsibilities and people need, some grace in those situations. I'm happy to provide it, but it can't be one-sided." All of a sudden the light bulb went off over his head. I just needed to make it make sense in his world. And as soon as I did, he was selling this to other people. It wasn't me anymore. It was him, right? So he had ownership in the process. He was involved in the game and it worked beautifully after that. And I told him, "Look, you're older than me and you're more experienced than me. So we could fight each other or we could work together to make this a good situation. I'm hoping you'll work with me because I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be flexible. At the end of the day, if someone's going to make a decision, that someone is me. But I'd much rather do it with you on my side than you fighting me on it because you'll probably help me make better decisions, Rob." And he like that resonated with him, the respect and the genuineness to which I approached him mattered a lot. Like you talked about in the subtitle, right? Be a human being. Be a human being to people. It's not as hard as we make it sometimes.
I love that story. And you did about 11 leadership things in that one story. Like literally, like the main thing is a change management technique, which is convert your strongest dissenters because then they end up being your like champions out there. But we also believe something else you did. We had all these mantras at the Cosmopolitan, and I loved all of them. My favorite one, however, was conversations make good company. Conversations make good company. Think about it. Whether it's the company for whom we work or the company we keep inside of work or outside of work, Is it or is it not the conversations that can make or break the experience? You chose to literally give from a place of generosity, give your time. You had some talent in being able to communicate like that. You gave your talent and you gave your heart in terms of vulnerability with this person. You were younger than him. You gave him the time there, the talent and your heart in that conversation. And I would be willing to guess, I live in Vegas, so I'd be willing to bet that you had an unbelievably positive relationship with that individual shortly thereafter that conversation.
100%. Yeah, it was a night and day thing. It always reminds me of one of my favorite Abraham Lincoln quotes. I do not like that man. I need to get to know him better.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
love that.
isn't it a great quote? I love it. It's so perfect.
I love that.
Yep. It's one of the things. So in my roles, I've negotiated a lot of things, and I'm sure you have too. And whenever I felt like I was entering into a negotiation that was set up to be adversarial, because some of them are collegial and some of them are collaborative, and some of them you're really kind of diametrically opposed, and those can be tough sometimes. But one of the things I tried to do in those situations was it's so small, but it works so good. Typically, in those situations, you walk into a room and there's a table set up, and everyone from one side will sit on one side, and everyone from the other side will sit on the other. I would walk in, I would wait until the other group was in, and I would walk in and I would go sit in the middle of their side. And so it showed two things. One, I'm not going to be pushed around. I'm not afraid of what's about to happen. But two, we're all in this together. And let's not forget that in most instances, it was a vendor who sold us hundreds of millions of dollars of product, and we were buying hundreds of millions of dollars of product from them. For whatever reason, those situations can still turn adversarial because, like, it happens a lot, right? But it just took the air out of the room when you're willing to kind of mix and, like you've talked about, getting out in the audience and involving people that need to be involved. And so I think there's a whole bunch of little things you can do that can deliver big results.
Totally agree. Yeah, I had a boss. He's now the president of major events integration for the Walt Disney Company. His name's Ken Potrock. And when I worked at Disney Vacation Club, he was our general manager and senior vice president of Disney Vacation Club. And amazing innovator, amazing marketer, great leader, obviously because they keep promoting him. But he would tell me, when was that? He would tell me 10 years ago when I was working there, he'd be like, there's no silver bullets. It's not one thing. Instead, it's hundreds of little things done consistently that separates like great from mediocre.
Yeah, I totally love that. It's so, like, I'm a big fan of goal setting, totally believe in goal setting, but it's actually the process by which you pursue your goals that separates successful from unsuccessful as it relates to goals. You have to have a target to shoot at. So you have to set goals. And I always use the NFL. Like there's 32 teams in the NFL. Don't tell me that everybody's goal in July and August is not to win the Super Bowl, because that's everybody's goal in July and August. So last year it was the Philadelphia Eagles. Did they just set the goal better than the other 31 teams? Did they set it more emphatically? Did they have it written in bigger, bolder letters? No. They executed against their goal, and they took consistent action over an 8-month period to achieve their goal better than other teams did. Right. And that lesson can be the same thing on anything in life: saving money, losing weight, building a relationship, raising children. It's always about those day-to-day little activities that make the difference. I call it the compound interest of life, because people understand compound interest as it relates to money, right? And so how do you coach companies like you work with big companies, so like if you've got a 5-person staff, it's a lot easier to coach and control behavior than you do 5,000 person staff or 20,000. Like United Airlines has hundreds of thousands of employees. How do you coach them to build that compound interest and coach those small steps every day so that they can be successful as an organization?
The thing is, the principles are the same. It doesn't matter if it's 100,000 people or 5 people. The principles still remain. So it's all relative. So it's really about just getting people to open up. So first, I do the same thing. I practice what I preach when I'm doing my thing. I got to connect with them on a human level first, or else they're still tuning me out an hour and a half in, and they're doing this, that are like doing the activity, or jamming out to Beauty and the Beast while we're having a partner activity or something. But the principles are the same, and when it comes to goal setting like that, like think about what happens. To your point, they didn't win the Super Bowl because they had the goal, because 31 other teams had the same goal, but the dynamics within their team led them to execute on the right behaviors more consistently than anybody else until the final whistle was blown. And so I love the work by Daniel Pink. I think it's in his book Drive, where it's sort of like the human behavior piece of how to create an environment where people become more self-motivated to do more. So we love this. So like as leaders, whether it's 5 people or you've got 25,000 people, but you probably don't have 25,000 direct reports, you have people that lead people that lead people that lead people. So what we got to do is just use these same principles, and then on down the track it would go in theory. So I love what he says. And so for us, it was like, and this was a light bulb for me 6, 7 years ago, and then 4 years ago, and then 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago, when I'm out here with these teams, I'm seeing it in real life. I'm seeing it in front of me happen. So the idea is like, think about the best teams you've been on, think about the best leaders you've ever had, the best coaches you've ever had. It was probably less about what they said. It was probably less about what they did, but instead it was the environment that they created that made it such a great experience, and that made you and your team at that time pretty successful. So think about what happens when we have one shared goal. When when the leader is able to say, all right, gang, there's a million things we could be doing. And yes, the vision is where we're going. Mission is why we exist. So where we're going is this vision. We're going to become the greatest fill in the blank and fill in the blank industry, period, the end. Well, when we have a laser focused SMART goal that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to that vision, and there's a due date, there's a time bound due date, SMART goal. Look what happens, according to Daniel Pink. You've now created, hopefully, a really self-motivating environment, because 3 things are happening. What he found in his research, and it's in his book and it's other books as well, but basically Richard Ryan and Edward Deci back in the 80s, they were these psychologists. They came up with the self-determination theory. And what they found is, like, human beings like you and me, human beings like all those people on our teams, human beings like all those people on the Philadelphia Eagles, even your New England Patriots, human beings will become self-motivated when 3 psychological human needs are met. We all have a need for competence. We have a need to feel like we're mastering our work. Second, we have a need for autonomy, or some choice in how the work gets accomplished. And 3, we all have a need for relatedness, or a sense of community. So I call it the 3 C's, the 3 C's of compassionate teams, the 3 C's of self-motivating teams. Create an environment where people have a sense of competence, where you're able to set that goal and show them the progress that they're making and celebrate them along the way. Don't wait till you get the win. Don't wait till the final results come in. You're cheerleading and celebrating them along the way. They'll feel more competent along the way. Set the goals, set the expectations, and get the hell out of the way. Become a cheerleader. Give them some autonomy. Watch what happens. They'll step up. They'll rise to the occasion. And the third one is, can you create that environment where people are building community with each other? Can you create spaces where they can have conversations about the things that matter? Sure, take them out to the ball game, take them out to dinner, take them to coffee, take them to lunch, encourage them to bring a little bit of themselves. So when people feel a sense of choice, a sense of competence, and a sense of community, they will become more self-determined, which means you as the leader have just created an environment where your people want to do more, where they want to give more, where they want to come in early, they want to stay late. You won't have to ask them, but you will have created that environment. That's how.
Oh man, yeah, no, I love that. Absolutely love it. It reminds me of, I had at one point I had a small group. It was about 12 people. I happened to be the only male, so I had 11 women that worked for me, and I was
Lucky you.
fortunate. What's that?
There's worse problems to have.
Oh,
Cheers.
for sure. So anyhow, I'm in my early 30s. And of course, I'm revamping this department. And I asked for feedback from absolutely nobody. I involved nobody in the decisions I was making. I just sit down and I sketch out this grand master plan because I'm the smartest guy on the face of the earth. And so I think you probably know where this leads to, right? So fast forward 3 weeks, the whole department is in chaos. It's like nothing is working right. Everybody's miserable. I can see that it's miserable. And I call everyone into my office. I'm like, hey, how are things going? And there's silence for about 10 seconds. And finally, the most vocal person in the department said, this effing sucks. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I just wanted somebody to validate it for me. Like it's clear that I screwed this up 7 ways a Sunday. So let's do it this way instead. Here are the goals that we have. Here are the guardrails that we have to stay within. Here is the budget that we have by which to accomplish all of this. If I asked you how we should do that, knowing what I just told you, how would you do it? And they said, give us a week. I said, okay, got it. So they came back to me in a week and they presented me with this plan. And they went through the whole plan and they said, what do you think? I said, sounds good. Let's do it. And they said, you don't want to make any changes? I said, no, we already tried my changes. I think we saw where that led us to. So why don't we just try your plan unfettered and see what happened? Whoosh, it just flowed like water downhill. Like everything flowed after that for two reasons. One, they knew how things worked a hell of a lot better than I did. And two, it was their plan. Do you think they were going to let it fail? Absolutely not. My plan sucked and nobody did anything to try to make it better, largely because they were afraid to tell me my plan sucked because I was their boss. Right.
Exactly.
And so once I opened the lines of communications and said, hey, it's really cool to tell me my plan sucked, no problem. Because like I got eyes, I can see my plan sucked because it ain't working. And like it was such a valuable management lesson to me that, hey, dummy, ask people who know what's going on how things should be done instead of trying to do it yourself.
Exactly
So,
right.
yeah, it just, I'll never forget it. It stuck with me ever since then. And it's funny because people that have less leadership experience than I do will sometimes question my willingness just to say, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Like, I don't know. Let's get the group together and figure out how to tackle this. I don't know how we're going to solve it, but we'll figure it out. They're like, doesn't it bother you to like say that you don't know something like you're in charge? I'm like, no, that actually is a sign of real leadership. Like you'll learn that as you go through life, that your willingness to stick your hand up in the air and say, I don't got it. I need some help is a huge, huge leadership skill that you need to develop if you're going to be a good leader.
Exactly right. And most of us have to go through an experience like you did, where we learn the hard way that that is, in fact, definitely a leadership thing. It doesn't always have to be our idea.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So the folks that work with you, what I'm trying to figure out a common thread. What do they have in common? I know the traits that they have in common, but do they come from a specific walk of life? Do they have specific goals? What do you think the common thread is for the folks that work with you?
Good question. There's probably two or three common threads. One, they're very entrepreneurial people. They're entrepreneurial minded people. By that I mean they may have worked in regular in companies and regular roles before and realized, like many of us realize, well, we're not cut out to do that. We need to be an entrepreneur. So that's one, is they're enterprising individuals. They figured out how, and they're very strategic and crafty about just figuring out ways to make money, make a living. The other thing that they have in common is they genuinely love people. Like they genuinely love pouring into people, whatever that looks like, whether it's pouring into an up and comer that's got all this hope, or pouring into an up and comer that's frustrated and not happy with the pace that they're moving up or how things are going. They're genuinely passionate about pouring into seasoned people, people that have been there forever, that are frustrated with all of the younger people. They're just genuinely passionate about encouraging and inspiring and lifting people up. Um, the other common thread is most of us either came from hospitality in some shape or form or fashion, or we were leaders. we were leaders in a past life of humans and of teams and of process and product. And so we can do a few things, man. We can all speak to the strategies, the tactics, the theories. We have stories of, here's a story about a time at Disneyland. Here's a story about a time, like I've got one person that used to work in Chicago public schools. So like, you're gonna tell me you gonna walk into a room full of ramp agents that work for an airline that are rough and grumpy. He ain't scared of anything. He spent all these years working in Chicago. People came from Hilton. People came from Saks Fifth Avenue as the director of training. Um, so those are probably the common threads. Everybody's a good teacher. Everybody's a really good teacher, really good coach. And they can hold the attention of a room for 3 hours or 7 hours or 2 days. Sometimes we'll do 2-day workshops. Um, Really, really cool people. It's my favorite part of the job. My favorite part is building that community of them and us, and just having that little thing that I'm trying to practice what I preach. Give them some choice. Give them some feeling competent in their work and how they're mastering delivering certain sessions and getting better. And I'll show them the feedback, because we have surveys, and people will write really cool stuff, and I'll send it to them after every session. And then I try to do my best to build community, even though we're all remote. They're all over the country, and we are always traveling when times are good. Knock on wood. But it's an opportunity for me to sort of put all this stuff into action and have yet more stories to tell about how it works. These are more illustrations we're able to share with each other and with people that we have in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One thing I've noticed about most really good teachers is they're also really good learners.
100%.
Um, I'd be curious just to get your take on that. How do you think those two things tie together?
Yeah, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. I actually have a couple former teachers on our team as well. And I think that's what keeps us, I guess it goes with anything in life. Like, when you find your passion, you find your sense of purpose, you'll almost do it for free, and nothing will stop you from doing it. Like, this is obviously has to be a passion for you. Like,
Right.
you work all day, and you're still doing this 5 episodes a week, and this is nighttime in Cleveland, and you're just chopping it up with some random guy in Vegas right now. So like, when we find our passion like that, we'll keep doing it. And I think that's what's true of this team. Um, and I guess that is another thing we all have in common, is we all are lifelong learners, which is, I think, why we value so much the work that we get to do and being a part of that learning experience for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's 100% right. And you're right. Like, I love doing this because, like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, I'm up at 5 every day, and I'm grinding out 12, 14-hour days, regular job. And then I do this because I feel it's super important to kind of expose people to different thought processes so they can build good lives for themselves. And it's funny. So I'm 53 now, and I don't know, somewhere mid to late 40s. I think it occurs to all of us. Hey, I'm not actually going to live forever like I thought I was gonna. Like, I guess this actually all does come to an end at some point, even though that logically, it doesn't really occur to you until you get to kind of midlife, and it becomes really important to give back. Like, I see that theme constantly in people, and so I think that's part of it as well. So, we haven't talked about it yet, but you just published a new book. Talk a little about your new book.
Yeah, this is a little different for us. This one is, I love reading fables because John Gordon, most of his books are fables. Patrick Lencioni, most of his books are fables. And so I kept hearing, like, out here since, mid-pandemic 2021, when I started to really get rolling in this business. I kept hearing feedback from people that, man, I'd rather a story, or I don't really like those kind of books, but I like this kind of book that's a story. And so I was sitting here during late pandemic, kind of George Floyd-ish time frame,
Mm.
heartbroken, like we all were. Everything's going on. What's going to happen? Nobody knows. And I just thought about, what if I use this as an opportunity to write a story about something that I believe could bridge our divides, no matter which side of the political, spectrum you may be on, what race you are, what generation you are, what nationality you are. And so here we are. It's another part about being human, and it's the spirit of generosity. And so that's where it started. And then I chose to make it a Hawaiian theme. because I was also I've fallen in love with Hawaii. I make no bones about it. I love Hawaii, all the islands, the food, the views, the drinks, the beach, the water, the snorkeling, the catamarans, love, the culture, especially the culture. And living here in Las Vegas, working on that Las Vegas strip for so many years, you work with Hawaiian people all the time. And Hawaiian people come here to visit all the time. They call Vegas the ninth island because of this. A lot of people will move here from the islands, cost of living, more stuff to do, and they like to gamble. So it fits their culture. And so I'm like, cool. So we did a fable. It's about a young girl, up and comer, who leaves a toxic job with a toxic boss, and she goes to work for a more magical place that I have dreamed up in my mind and in my heart called Kauwela Resorts, or Calvela, if you're pronouncing it in Hawaiian. Calvela means summertime in Hawaiian. And the main character's name is Summer Grace. And the story is about her first 2 weeks on the job when she goes to the orientation experiences with her fellow newly hired leaders that have joined Kauwela Resorts for the next part of their career. And the story is about they go to these experiences, and I paint the picture kind of like what we do, where these two facilitators, Nick and Arlene, named after my grandparents, one on either side of my family, my mom's dad and my dad's mom. But Nick and Arlene take this group of 20 new leaders through what I call hospitality conversations about the things that matter. And those things that matter are the Calvela Resorts values: give compassion, give encouragement, give kindness, give hospitality, and give leadership. And so the story is just about the conversations that they're facilitating along the way. And you can see and you can feel as the week unfolds, day 1, day 2, day 3, they pick one value per day. And I've got a G word, an I word, a V word, and an E word that I've used, that Nick and Arlene use, to that I believe will bring to life those things like compassion, encouragement, kindness, hospitality, and leadership. So you can see, and hopefully you're going to be able to feel the participants, the newly hired leaders. They might have been nervous when they came in, but you can see them opening up more as the conversations continue. You can see them feeling more like, wow, I was nervous before, but maybe for once I have landed where I'm supposed to be. And I've got little innuendos along the way. Summer Grace being her name, and she finds out what Kauwela means at the very end of the story. It means summertime in Hawaiian. And that was my way of telling everybody that if you're going through some rough times, if you're going through a transition, if you're nervous about a new situation, you might just be exactly where you're supposed to be, because everything that has happened up to this point happened for a reason, and it's prepared you for what you're about to walk into. So hope I didn't give too much away, but it's really more about Mark Sanborn, my favorite author. He told me a long time ago, people don't buy the book, they buy the hook. So as long as you value this sentiment of living, working, and loving from a place of generosity, I just believe this could be a potential tool for leaders and up and coming leaders and seasoned leaders alike to just give it to their teams and then have them read it together. And then you as the leader, I've got an action plan that people can download from our website. And it's got the prompts that in the story, the facilitators ask the participants to go through, and like your top 3 strengths and how are you going to use them to impact somebody else. And I've created an action plan for leaders that they can do that with their teams if they choose to. Just something for free, a resource. I love when these guys do that with their own book, like John does it with all his books. You got to pay $11 per on his website to get his, but I'm getting away. I'm not John Gordon just yet. So there's a little bit about it. And here's the coolest part is I'm donating a portion of the proceeds of this book, my royalties from the book, and I don't even know how much I can be. Probably something. But also any keynotes, any leadership development work that I get as it relates to this book, I'm donating a portion of these proceeds to the Hawaii Community Foundation's Maui Strong Fund to help with the recovery efforts from the wildfires in Lahaina Harbor on Maui in August of 2023.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's such a worthy cause. That it was such a devastating event, and I don't know. It feels like that's been largely pushed aside or forgotten by most of the country, and it's like there's still a lot of devastation over there.
There is. I just got back. I went down there for 2 weeks last month. My wife and I both. She was going down there for work, and I'm like, I'm coming along. So like she works for Six to rent a car, so she did her thing, and I just kind of did my thing. And I went and I built relationships. I walked into places cold turkey again, took action, walked in, knocked on some doors, had a couple drinks, talked to the bartender, talked to the leaders, talked to the managers, go to the front desk. I was all over. I went to Oahu, the Big Island, Kauai, and Maui. Ended up on Maui by myself, all Kanapali, Kapalua, Wailea, all around, and um, made relationships with the people there at the Hawaii Community Foundation, and just went. They didn't know who I was. I just literally walked in there and said, "Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm this guy. I've been doing all this, and I wrote this book. Here's a copy, and I want to just give money to you." And they were like, "Awesome. I wish more people were doing that." And just sat around and had some conversations with them. And you're right. There's been so much devastation. People lost their jobs. People lost their houses. They lost their businesses. People lost their family members. A lot of those people have moved here to Las Vegas. I know firsthand. Um, and there's people living on the other islands where their cousin lived in Lahaina, or their cousin grew up on the Big Island and then went and moved over to Maui. And it's heartbreaking. If you really dive in and take a look, not unlike what happened in the Palisades fire in LA, and so I just wish we could do more to help all of these places, New York and New Jersey right now with the floods, closer to home where I'm from. Last year we had the big floods in like Appalachia there and like Asheville, North Carolina, devastating, especially for the hospitality industry. Because those of us in the hospitality industry, I mean, we depend on tourism for like our livelihoods too. So a little bit of a purposeful reason to do this book. And then along the way, as a synergy, I also I became a franchise owner of Dream Vacations, which is a travel agency franchise. So now,
Nice.
so now we have Lead with Hospitality Travel Group by Dream Vacations. And it's another way that we hope to help incremental guests, customers, and clients. We want to be a part of helping people learn about these new destinations. Maybe they've never been to Maui. Maybe they've never been to Honolulu. Maybe they've never been on a cruise with a certain supplier, a certain part of the world, a certain part of the country. And we want to be a part of helping more people get to go experience the magic of hospitality, because we know not only will they be fulfilled when they go do it, but it's going to help support the people that work in those destinations for those brands that we love. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 months now. I'm getting better at it as I go, booking more cruises, booking some hotel and some package vacations, people going to Hawaii. It was all coming together. So when people get to the end of my book, you'll have an opportunity to like see the link there, and either, you can go give yourself to the Maui Strong Fund. You can visit us at, leadwithhospitalitytravelgroup.com and look at our website there and pick your dream vacation, and we can help you get on your way to go experience some great hospitality.
Love all that, man. That is such good stuff. I love the book. You had to have a great time writing that, but it had to have been a blast to put that together, huh?
It was an emotional roller coaster. There were some things that I thought were going to happen that fell through. There were some other things that ended up happening that I didn't even realize, and I was pleasantly surprised with. Um, the whole Hawaii thing, for one, like that was sort of something I decided to do. Like I was well down the path of creating it and sort of, putting it together. And then those fires happened, and it
Mm.
scrapped everything, and I redid it, to have the Hawaii theme. So it's been emotional, and it's in a moment of vulnerability. I mean, it's been a little bit stressful because you don't know. You put yourself out there with these things, you don't know how it's going to land. You don't want to come across too salesy when I'm like emailing like all of these people that I just sent them boxes of they got at their corporate headquarters, or they got at their back dock of their hotel. Um, but I'm just doing like you said, man. I'm doing like we have been talking about for over an hour. Just this is kind of like one of those actions I just continue to take. Whether it was my dad and my mom, like putting together a highlight reel when I was 16 years old of, me on the basketball court and sending it to colleges and university coaches, and here I am 20 plus years later, I'm doing the same thing with, only it's not a highlight reel of my basketball playing. It's my books and it's my programs and resources that we create.
Funny, isn't it? When I was a junior in high school, I knew I wanted to continue to play baseball. And so I'm from Portland, Oregon originally. And, back then, this would have been, I graduated high school in 1990. And back then, all the good baseball players were either in California, Arizona, or Florida. And California was closest to Portland, Oregon. So I wrote a letter to every college in California, every coach in California. I had to go to the guidance counselor's office. There was no internet. There was no way to look those things up. That didn't exist back in the day. And so I went and got the college handbook from my guidance counselor, looked up and personally hand addressed and stamped and mailed. I was like 120 letters, something like that. Little did I know that back then they weren't allowed to recruit. There was very specific ways you could recruit, and if someone did not contact you, you could not contact them. So I made the initial contact simply because I wanted to continue playing baseball. Here's my stats. Here's my grades because I was a good student, so I knew I'd look attractive. And I was a good baseball player, so I knew that'd look attractive. And all of a sudden, there's this outpouring, hey, we want you to come play for us. And the next year I'm in LA, and that leads to a scholarship and blah 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 blah. Um, but I got lucky again. Imagine all that luck I got from putting all those letters together. Wasn't it lucky that I did that?
Preparation met opportunity. Yet again.
Oh my gosh, it's such good stuff. Well, so the as we wrap up, is there anything we haven't talked about or covered yet that you feel like is important to say to our audience or let our audience know about before we let you go?
Predominantly your audience, what age group are we looking at? And do you have any? I should have asked
No,
that before.
for sure, yeah. So it's typically 18 to 46, I think. When I look at our like 70% of our audience is in that demographic.
Well, then that's good to know. And here's what I would say is like I'm in that. I mean, I'm 40 something. So I just think we all have a big opportunity right now. All of us in this age group that are out here doing whatever it is we're doing, the way that we're doing it. And I think we can all agree. I think we can all agree, no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, or what your beliefs are, what your religion is, what your faith is, whether you're a New England Patriots fan or a Philadelphia Eagles fan, we can all agree that the last 5 years have been pretty rough. We can all agree there have been like stresses and there's been a lot of divide, a lot of division. I don't know about you, like I got friend groups that have just been fractured. We're working through it. We're working through it at work. We're working through it at home. We're working through it in our communities. And so that's one of the reasons I do the work that I do. It's one of the reasons I do it the way I do it. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this book, this latest book to the world, is that can we all just get along? No. Can we all just peel back up to 30,000 feet and to really remember like what we talked about earlier, be human, emotionally connect with people and serve other people selflessly. And things like giving compassion. Like I'll just give you, Gally. Here's the framework of giving compassion. Ready? GIVE. Things like the golden rule. Like, well, how would you feel if you had to go through like what they're going through?
Mm.
So them how you would want to be treated. When you do that, you're automatically more inclusive of everybody. And then when we're more inclusive of everybody, you're a person that's going to validate somebody else. You're validating their strengths. You're validating their just simply being there. And that creates a greater sense of engagement wherever you are, whether you're a leader, a teammate, a person in your community, a family member that maybe have a weird, struggling family dynamic right now. How about giving encouragement? Like when we give our gifts, we all have our God-given gifts. So just give them to people. Just give it, whatever your gifts are. Joe's got his gifts. He's been giving it to all of you for all these years. And now I'm going to be a listener and a watcher of this podcast. I like this. This is neat. I've been on about 30 of these. None of them have been this long. None of them have been this like relaxed, but also really great conversation. It's a gift. It makes an impact. That's the I word for encouragement, impact. Less about making a good impression, but focus on making an impact. Being vocal. If you got an idea, you got something to say, you got some feedback to give, step up, man. Be vocal. Be vocal in your team, in your community, in your family. And when you do that, you'll educate others. That's the E word. You'll educate others. It's amazing how much encouragement we can feel when we just learn something we didn't know before. A moment of insight we don't soon forget. Giving kindness, G word, genuineness. Just be genuine. Like don't fake it till you make it, because when you make it, you'll be a fake. Be genuine. Be you. When you do, you're going to make a positive influence on other people, positive influence on people around you. And you can do that when you are vulnerable. Like Joe and I've been sharing stories. He's been so vulnerable saying how he messed up. And I've learned to be vulnerable with people when we thought back in the day it was a weakness to be vulnerable. And Brene Brown made vulnerability famous. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable with those people that you work with or the people that are on your team. It'll build some trust that you might not have otherwise. And all of that together, the E word, will enhance the environment that you find yourself in. Hospitality starts with generosity, just being willing to give something and not really expect much in return. The I word for hospitality is just inspiration. Like giving hospitality, like if you really want to give a great experience to somebody, well, get out there and experience some cool stuff on your own first, so you know what it feels like, um, and it'll help you inspire other people. And then volunteer. It's amazing what can happen in our hearts and in our minds when we take time to just give to less fortunate, to volunteer in places that might be in your community. You'll not only feel good while you're doing it, which is also scientific research, by the way, I found while doing this book. Turns out stuff happens chemically, like when we're giving and volunteering, it's like a good thing. So, but you also build community with people you're doing it with. Might make a new friend, you might make a new contact out of it, and then just elevate those experiences, whether you're working in Joe's grocery stores, or you're working in a restaurant, or you're working in a law firm, or you're working in a hospital. When we give hospitality to people, you're going to elevate those experiences, which are going to have that elephant rider thing. You're going to peak the emotion, find the elephant, which is going to inspire people to come back. You're going to inspire people to spend more money at your business. You're going to inspire people to be more connected to you, whatever the case may be. And finally, giving leadership. Giving leadership first starts out with gratefulness. It's impossible to be negative when we're grateful. Turns out we can't do both of those things at the same time. The I word, when we're grateful, it sparks intentionality. We become intentional with our actions, intentional with our behaviors. And when we do that, we're able to lean into our values. So just lean into living your personal values. If you haven't lately, a great exercise to do is just to pause and reflect and ask yourself, what are my personal values?
Mm.
Until we realize what our personal values are, we have a real hard time bringing them to life. So like lean into your values and just bring them to life every day. The E word for leadership, empathy. It's like the most simple thing, but often it's the most profound leadership skill. And unfortunately, as we've talked about a lot on this episode, unfortunately, empathy in what my work is the most often missed leadership skill. So there is a mini keynote in about 3 minutes. I've given everybody what's in this book, but hopefully if you like a little bit of that or some parts of that, you see some opportunities to share this with people on your team, people in your lives, and just lean into these conversations about these things because they are the things that matter.
Killed it, Taylor. You couldn't have done a better job. I didn't tell you that question was coming, and you knocked it out of the park, man. And look, I'll just reiterate with one thing. I say it a lot. Life is about relationships and experiences. You can keep all your material possessions. I've never seen a Brinks truck following a hearse to the cemetery. When people are on their deathbed, they always, always, always talk about regretting things they did not do. It's not regretting what they did. So take action. Remember, life's about relationships and experiences. That ties in exactly with what Taylor's been talking about for the last couple of hours here. And we'll have links to his books and his website coaching and anything else that you want in the show notes. Highly encourage you, especially like he's giving some of the proceeds to people that have had everything yanked out from under them in the Hawaii fire, at least on the second book. So you can learn something, you can get better, and you can do something good while you do it. Like it's the triple crown. Why would you not take a shot on that? So highly encourage you to check those things out. Taylor, love to keep in touch as things move on. You want to come back on? It's the door is always open for you here.
Appreciate that. I'll take you up on that. I love it. I'd love
Yeah,
to.
yeah, sounds good. Really appreciate the time. We'll talk to you later and have a great night.
You too, sir.
All
Goodbye,
right,
everybody. Good
thanks,
luck.
Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, like we said, Taylor, high energy guy, loved his stories about walking on at basketball and going through the hospitality industry, falling in love with leadership management and training, and building a business around that. Look, how many more times are you going to listen to people say, I just took a shot. I just cold called these people. I just cold emailed these people. I just put myself out there to see what would happen. And it led them to a great spot before you're willing to do it on your own. So we see that lesson over and over and over again with our guests. They're high caliber people. They're not afraid to take their chances. They're not afraid of rejection. They know that they're going to learn something from those experiences, and they put themselves in uncomfortable situations so they can grow as people. Taylor perfectly exemplifies that, and he did a great job of covering that on the podcast. So, got a couple of books available to you. You can check him out on his website. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Great feedback on all the great things he talked about on the show. So, great job, Taylor. Like we said at the end, doors always open here. And hopefully, we'll see him again in the future and have another great conversation with him. We'll see where that takes us. So, James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to head to the website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are there. Links to all the social media accounts are there. We've got a newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to there. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. We keep finding awesome people like Taylor. We have great guests. We have great tips. If you want to live a life of purpose, if you want to be a self leader, if you want to take action, take control of your life, you're in the right spot. This is the right podcast for you. You don't want to miss the next guest. Make sure you check out our next episode. We will see you there.